Hi everyone, Sarah from Emmy Designs here. I'm going to show you how to do the brown stain on this one. On another video, on the stay-at-home video, I showed you how to do the gray stain by doing the baby wipe method. This one I'm going to show you the brown stain on the grandchildren sign by the watered down paint method. If you've been to my workshops, this is what I usually use for stain, only because this stain dries quicker and then you can stencil right after it. You can definitely use an oil-based stain, which I really like the look of, but you just have to wait 24 hours after you use an oil-based stain because the stencil won't stick to it. So, but for now, we're gonna do the brown stain. What I did is I just mixed water. You want like half and half water and paint. What you're just doing is watering down the paint so you can see the grain through it. And then mix it up. And then you can apply it with this, or you can apply it with a paintbrush or even just a rag. But for now, I'll just do it with this. And just put it all on. You can do the whole thing and then come back, or you can do it in sections. So you're just gonna put it on pretty generously. And then what you'll do is, because you want to see that grain through, you're going to come back with a paper towel and wipe off all the extra. You'll want to make sure it's dry before you go any further. So I just did a quick blow dry on the background. At this point, you can leave it. If you like the way it looks, you're ready to go. Don't forget to do your sides too. Or you can sand it a little bit. If you sand it and you don't like it, you can always put more stain back in, but I like to stain everything. I like to give a little bit of a worn look around the edges. So I'm gonna sand it down just a little bit until I like it. I will be right back. So I sanded mine down quite a bit. I like to get to sand down the edges and show some of that natural wood through, because what it's going to do is when we do put our little clothespins on, it kind of brings it together with that natural wood, and these are going to be natural wood. You can stain these if you want, but I kind of like the contrast. Okay, next step. All cleaned off. Next step's going to be our stencil. You are going to flip it over white side up and peel off all the white. What's going to happen is your little blue pieces are going to pop up. You just want to make sure all those stay down as you peel. You're going to want to keep that flat, and then it's easier to just go back and push it back in. So there is a rectangle around the outside of this, so it's going to be easy to center it and line it up right where it needs to go at the top. And then once you do that, then you are going to rub it down. You can use a credit card to rub it down, but since we stained and sanded the background, you should be able to just. And you can definitely paint the background a solid color. You can stain it and then paint it and then sand it. You can do whatever you want. Okay, once the tape's off, the next step is just to make sure all those little blue guys stay down. Mod Podge is marked MP. You're gonna want to do one light coat. So if you see white like that, that's gonna be way too heavy. So you really just want to spread it out so you don't see any white. And it's just one coat of this by dabbing up and down. Remember, you only want to do one coat of that Mod Podge, and then you don't want to blow dry this blue. This blue vinyl can melt if it gets too hot. So you want it just to dry naturally. Once it's dry, then you can apply the paint. When you sign up for this kit, you can choose whatever paint color you want. I'm gonna do cream. I just think it would look good on that brown stain and kind of match these. So you're going to dip in that's gonna be way too heavy to put on. So what I do is I take the back of the paper, get most of it off till it's almost dry, and then you're gonna do dry coats. So you can even dip in some of that. So every time you dip into your paint, get most of it off. You can use that blank space. So you're gonna do multiple coats, but each coat is gonna be super light. You wanna see through it. You don't want any extra paint. That's how you're gonna get the really nice crisp lines, and that's how you're gonna avoid any bleeding. It's just by really light coats and then build them up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the first coat on that. First coat is done. It's going to be so light that usually where you started is gonna be dry, so you should be ready to go right across with your second coat. After your second coat, it's going to be up to you. If you think you need a third coat, you want to make sure that every place is covered. There's nothing peeking through. You don't want to see any of the top of the letters. So you don't have to wait for this to dry. You actually are going to want to peel it when it's still a little bit on the wet side. It's just going to be way easier to peel up if it's still a little wet. So you can go ahead and peel off. Don't worry, all the little insides, we're going to go back and get those. So just peel off the top stencil. Perfect. And then in your kit, you're going to have a little safety pin. So, sorry, my safety pin was across the room. So now you can go back and you can grab all these little insides. Take your time. You're going to want to go at it at like an angle, not down, and kind of almost like you're threading a needle. Just scoop those right off. Take your time. If you get little stab marks, don't worry, you can always go dip. That one's not coming up very easy. You can dip your pin in the stain and kind of fill in those little stab marks. If you have small bleeds anywhere, you can take your pin, or I like to use an X-Acto knife too, but if you don't have an X-Acto knife and you only have your pin, you can take the tip of the pin and clean up those edges by scratching up down. I had a little bit of bleeding in the A. And sometimes it's just how the grain of the wood is. It just sneaks under the stencil, even though we Mod Podge. So there. Perfect. Oh, I have one more mark I'm gonna get. All right, next step is you're gonna take the twine and you're going to feed them into both sides. So it's a little difficult to put this twine through the hole. So I did two different things. On this one, I took a little Mod Podge and I twisted it and let it dry, and it actually went right through. And on this one, I used a toothpick and pushed it through. But I think the Mod Podge worked better. So then you're just gonna take the side and tie a knot. You're gonna want it, it's gonna hang, but you're gonna want it pretty tight just because these are gonna give weight to it when you put your pictures on. And just do a loose knot because you might need to go back and do some adjusting. And that is it. And then you'll have a hanger in the back that you can just hammer on. And it makes such a cute gift.